Hey guys, Trev here from SpineWise, and today I want to talk to you about insomnia, the ability to get to sleep at night. We see so many people at our office who just cannot fall asleep or cannot stay asleep at night, and whether you're having problems with falling asleep or staying asleep can be completely different in what is causing it. So I want to have a quick chat to you today about some of the things that actually trigger this, and perhaps some of the things that you can do to start trying to even take care of this on your own. So if you're having any issues with sleeping, this is really a video for you. If you know anyone that's having sleeping, please share it with them. Like our page, subscribe. We're always trying to help as many people as we can here in any way that we possibly can, and getting information out is one of those ways that we have the opportunity to do so. Anyway, so getting into it, before we get started, there are two different types of insomnia. People aren't aware of them, and even a lot of practitioners don't hear them properly use these names correctly. The first is the word insomnia. Insomnia is the ability for you to fall asleep at night. In other words, if you go to bed and close your eyes, you should really be asleep within 10 to 15 minutes latest, preferably within 3 or 5 minutes. Okay, if you're getting longer than that, then you potentially have this thing called insomnia, which is the ability for you to fall asleep on command, like when it's ready to go to bed. The other side of it is people who have trouble staying asleep at night. These are the ones who can fall asleep without a problem, but they just can't stay asleep. And this is actually more tied in with what we call maintenance insomnia. In other words, the ability to maintain your sleep pattern. They are two different things, and from what we see, there are actually two different origins as to their problems as well. I'm going to talk to you about this from my experience perspective, a little bit of research in it, but mainly from my experience here with our team. Okay. So as we said before, insomnia, maintenance insomnia, two different conditions. They both involve you not being able to get to sleep at night. Both of them are associated with an increase in brain arousal. In other words, your brain has been stimulated out of control. So imagine if you're, let's say you're running around in the forest and all of a sudden you sit down, you go to get to sleep and you think there's a tiger about to attack you. Right then and there, that's not the time to fall asleep. So the brain increases your arousal rates, and by increasing your arousal rates, it basically keeps you awake, which protects you, okay? So this is the mechanism that we're talking about, this increase in brain arousal, or an increase in vigilance, if you want to call it that way as well. And this whole mechanism really is driven by the brain itself. So we get confused. A lot of people think melatonin, it puts you to sleep, but it doesn't actually. It's just a sedative to help calm you down. Sleeping is actually a brain event. It's a brain wave action, and we slow our brain waves down, and that's what allows us to fall asleep. And we're not going to go into a lot of detail. We can do a more detailed one later on, but I just want to give you a bit of an insight into how the brain works in this regard. So in the upper area of your brainstem, so this is your brainstem through here. In the upper area of your brainstem, we have an area of the brain called your midbrain, and inside that is an area called your ascending reticular activating system, so your ARA for short. And what we see is when the ARA is stimulated, it fires off into the brain itself, and this increases the brain arousal rate. And this is a big reason why a lot of people can't fall asleep at night. In other people, it does the exact opposite, and the ARA kind of shuts down. I'm being a bit oversimplified here, but it kind of shuts down, and this is what we often commonly associate with narcolepsy. Okay, so this is slowly, one way or another, altering our brain arousal rate. So there's a lot of different causes of changes to our standard insomnia, not being able to get to sleep at night. The most obvious one to start with is just poor sleep hygiene. Do you have a routine that you use when you go to bed to tell the brain, hey, it's time to settle down now? Okay, that's the first one. That's the obvious one. We're going to ignore that and presume everyone's got good sleep hygiene. So the first one I'm going to talk about is, again, this ARA, this ascending reticular activating system that we just touched on a second ago. So a lot of different reasons why this can go haywire. The biggest ones we see, TMJ problems. We've spoken a fair bit about TMJ the last few weeks. So the jaw, if the jaw is not functioning very well, we're getting changes in input, it'll also increase our ARA, our midbrain, and that can increase our brain arousal rate and again create some levels of insomnia. Vision or hearing stimulation. So there's been a lot of talk over the last few years about blue flashing lights, using technology before you go to bed, actually stimulating the brain, or having blue cool white lights on, stimulating the brain. It's kind of through this mechanism that it's doing it. And the other one is when we're having issues with our neck, that can also fire into that as well, which can create problems. We can put in straight going around there and coming straight into here. Vestibular system, which is our balance centers. This can also increase our brain arousal and create similar problems for us as well. Poor vagal tone. So your vagus nerve is kind of, you think of everything that is stress, your vagus nerve does the exact opposite. So your vagus nerve calms you down. It slows you down. It slows the brain down. It stabilizes your immune system. It speeds up gut function. It's kind of our relaxation nerve. When we're trying to get to sleep, what does tend to happen is that we tend to change our breathing patterns, our respiratory rate changes, and as that happens, there's changes that occur to both your vagus nerve and to the areas that take input into this area of the brain to shut them down to reduce your brain arousal rate. So having poor vagal tone can potentially be a problem. I'm not saying it does cause people to not get to sleep, but it can potentially be a problem for some people with sleep disturbance. Hormones, a lot of different hormones will affect your sleep patterns. We know that the most common one we're aware of is melatonin that you've heard of. Again, melatonin is not a sleep hormone, it's just a sedative. It just helps calm you down. One of those most potent effects is actually as an antioxidant to help clean the brain out at night. And one of the things we know about melatonin is it's very, very sensitive to light. And it peaks somewhere between about midday to 2 a.m. So you really want to be in bed well before melatonin has peaked to get the most benefit from it. And our limbic system, our emotional centers as well. When we're wound up emotionally, that'll wind up our brain arousal rate as well. So we've got a whole lot of different things that can wind up the brain that we can potentially look at to help calm people down. The other thing we need to look at then from a maintenance insomnia perspective, it's a little bit different because now we already know you are asleep. You're just not staying asleep. There's a lot of different reasons for that. Top of the list is this thing called sleep apnea, so airway problems overnight. So if you're not breathing very well overnight, the brain will want you to toss and turn. As you toss and turn throughout the night, the net result of that is going to be keeping your airways open. But when we get into REM sleep especially, our brain shuts down. Part of our system becomes somewhat paralyzed, and if we're not breathing very well, there's some evidence to suggest that we'll actually bang our teeth together to stimulate this system here, ARA system, to increase our arousal rate, to pull us out of sleep so that we move around and we breathe again. So sleep apnea is a common cause of people waking up throughout the night. Also seems to be a reason, especially in children, that may actually tie in with teeth grinding as well. Hypoglycemia, this is low blood sugars. So if your blood sugar levels drop really low overnight, what the body will naturally do is it'll start increasing a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And that increase in cortisol kind of pushes the creation of sugar in your bloodstream back up to normal to stabilize it. So the problem with it is that cortisol should actually start elevating should reach a peak for the entire day, about 30 minutes after you wake up in the morning. So it really is designed to wake you up and get you going through the day. So when we're having problems with hypoglycemia and we're having these peaks of cortisol throughout the night, the net result of that is we want to keep waking up throughout the night as well. So blood sugar issues are a big one, especially if you're someone who has high GI sugars before bed, desserts, that type of stuff before bed. Gut issues, we know a lot of our neurotransmitters and the like are produced in the gut. Even digestive, like people eating heavy meals before they go to bed can kind of tie into that as well. Hormones, again, melatonin and all our other calming hormones such as serotonin, dopamine, things like this can all potentially have an influence on the brain, and same as we said before, emotionally as well. If we're having anxiety, we're getting wound up, these type of things. So how do we go about dealing with this? Because we have two different ways that we look at this to a great extent. The first one is if we're looking at insomnia, so you can't fall asleep, the general approach we take here is calm down. You need to just calm down. We need to put things into place to calm you down, settle you down, and allow you to fall asleep at night, whether it be sleep hygiene or any of these type of disturbances that could be going on neurologically with you. When we're looking at staying asleep, it's a different situation. Now we're not so much worried about trying to calm you down because you are getting to sleep. It's more about staying asleep, and this is more about balancing your physiology and your biochemistry and your hormones. So this is more a physiological problem, where this seems to be more a neurological problem. Again, that's not research, that's just been our experience here with it. So in these type of things, we're looking at, are we having airway problems? Are we having blood sugar issues? Are we having problems with the gut? These type of things, where this type of really asking the question of why are you so wound up? Okay, they both overlap somewhat, but there's actually two distinctive areas that come in with that as well. So a couple of key things, if you're trying to calm yourself down, make sure you've got soft lighting on at night. Make sure it's warm lighting, not cool lighting like I've got on here at the moment. It's that lighting that gives you that yellowy kind of look. That's the kind of lighting you want on in the evenings. Have tech-free time. Within 90 minutes of going to bed, make sure you're off all your tech, stop stimulating your brain. Bring the volume down. all the loudness, bring it down, make things softer and quieter to allow the brain a chance to settle down as well. All the other stuff probably needs to be checked. From a physiological perspective, it's the biggest thing we can do is really harp on about diet. It's really, really important with this, mainly because the airways to start with. If you're having problems with inflammation, sometimes that can reduce the airways and lead to our sleep apnea pattern. And the other aspect is with food as well as the hypoglycemia. If you're going hypoglycemic overnight, that's always going to create problems for you through the night and possibly even in the morning as well. So we want to make sure the last lot of food you eat is not late at night. Give it at least 2 hours before you go to bed, and make sure it's not a high, rich, carb-orientated food. Because these type of things, again, are going to spike our insulin levels and potentially push our blood sugars down 3 or 4 hours time when you're meant to be asleep. Anyway, guys, that's a very, very brief, quick intro into sleeping problems. They're so common now. They seem to have gotten worse over the last 12 months with all the stresses around COVID and things like that. If you are having problems and you have some questions or whatever, just send them to me. Always happy to help out. Otherwise, post up down below. Whatever you feel more comfortable with, always happy to help out in any way, shape or form, no matter where you are in the world. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this far in. Please like and subscribe, share our videos around. Always trying to help as many people as we can, and you're a big part of that process, so please do that. Thank you if you already have, and I shall catch you in the next vid. Bye for now.